Geek out!
Hey, this is a special episode. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And, we've talked about our influences in doing this podcast. And, certainly once we've become, I guess, full-fledged comic
Idiots.
press.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that was out of the womb.
But now it's just documented forever.
Yeah. We'll never run for... No, who knows? In this political climate, we'd probably actually win. But it's like, these guys are idiots. Let's vote for them. Yeah.
He's seen Batman 89 how many times?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I'm a one-issue voter, and that's the issue. How many times have you seen Batman 89?
That's his entire platform.
Yeah.
His platform is VHS copies of Batman 89.
Yeah.
I will
Literally,
say-
I'm standing on top of it.
The day we're recording this is Michael Keaton's birthday.
Oh,
Happy birthday, Michael.
happy birthday, Michael. We're both the robot from Rocky IV.
Happy birthday, Michael. I think he turned 66, so he is now Batman 66.
Ooh.
Oh. Cool.
Does that mean?
I don't think Batman was 66 years old for Batman 66.
No, Adam West is like... Anyway,
Yeah.
we're not here... We're here to talk to Adam Freeman and Marc Bernardin about their book, Genius Cartel, the second issue. I say as much in the intro, which this is also out in comic book stores on Wednesday, September 13th. First issue's out. The first miniseries, Genius, also known as Genius Siege, is also out, digitally and in comic book stores everywhere. So in a lot of ways, Marc has kind of influenced the direction the show's gone, and
Yeah. I say as much in the interview, but him joining with Kevin Smith, for this Batman commentaries, and then becoming co-host of the show, and that show becoming much bigger, than just being an interview show. I think
as we were becoming a comic book press show, that was kind of happening.
And, I've been a loyal listener to a bunch of Kevin Smith's podcasts for years and years. And it was cool because I was like, oh, that's something we do. And watching them and being inspired to try to put on our best nerd shoes and have fun.
Both of these guys, are kind of an inspiration, nerds that made good, both Adam and Marc.
And, buddies who've known each other for years and
of course.
Growing up and like you said, doing nerds proud.
But let's talk about their own contribution to nerd culture. And joining us this week, we have Adam Freeman and Marc Bernardin. Their Image Comics Top Cow series, Genius Cartel, continues the saga of Genius as we follow Destiny, who's kind of in an Ender's Game type scenario. Mm-hmm. The first issue of Cartel is already on the stands. You can get the first volume just straight up called Genius. And issue 2 hits newsstands on Wednesday, September 13th. Adam, Marc, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, without getting too political, or if you want to get political, it's, you're our fucking guests. You can do whatever you like. Now it seems like the story within Genius and Destiny's story seems more prescient and more timely than ever. What made you guys kind of want to revisit that world?
Well, I think that Destiny is a character that, as we wrote the first book, we sort of fell in love with. It's you would hope that you fall in love with every character that you write, but that's not entirely always the case. Mm-hmm. But once we got to the end of that book, and once we realized that there was going to be a school, and once we realized that we were going to we could pull her out of the place that she had grown so comfortable, and drop her in the middle of an environment and in a structure that she had no idea what to do with, that there was more story there to tell, that there were more places that we could go.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, in Destiny's journey in the first series was much kind of like ours. Is like Destiny, we assumed that there was no way out, and that there was no way to win, and that the end of that story would be the end of Destiny. And by the time we got to the end, to echo what Marc said, we really wanted to spend more time with this character, and we realized as we were writing the closing pages of that final issue that someone like Destiny would not just go away quietly, whether by her own devices or whether some larger, more nefarious group would swoop in. But you don't let a talent like that, a talent as dangerous as that, just walk away.
Well, and obviously there's a huge change in the power dynamic between the Destiny we see in the original Genius and the Destiny we see in Cartel. During the intro, I was talking about Ender's Game. How do you think that impacts her character? Kind of, being forced to learn or kind of forced into the student role. How do you think? And was Ender's Game kind of an inspiration as well?
It's, she's never had to play with others before, so this is her completely out of her element. She's never had to answer to anyone before. Mark and I are both huge fans of the Ender's Game series. I think, at least speaking for myself, I think it was a kind of subconscious homage. As we got deeper into it, we drew some parallels, but I think Ender's Game is just part of a long list of pop culture goodies that, influenced us and that bounce around in our brain whenever we're thinking of stuff.
Something also going into Cartel, there is a change in artist. You don't have Afua Richardson. What made forgive me if I do, what made Rosie the right choice for this new miniseries?
I think coming off of the first book, and we were so lucky to find Afua, and she absolutely put her stamp all over that book. But as we began to realize what the actual long game was, and that we were going to be telling a bunch of different stories, a bunch of different chapters in the story, that there was actually something really interesting about getting a different artist to do each chapter, to bring something different to each chapter. And Afua was perfect for the gritty sort of urban cityscape that we were dealing with in Siege. But for Cartel, we wanted something a little bit more brighter, a little bit, hothouse colors, a little bit different. And I think that Rosie was able to come in and mesh with the team really quickly and bring a different kind of spin on the ball.
We love Afua and we love Rosie, but as we're developing the third arc in the series right now, there will most probably be a new artist on that, and that's kind of exciting, and it helps set them apart. And we, just like a director might change up cinematographers or change up camera operators, I think it's fun to come up with what that look and vibe and color palette is for each arc.
Now, as you guys had mentioned, you're taking Destiny out of South Central Los Angeles. You're putting her in the schools. You're sending her abroad on kind of a James Bond-esque kind of globe hopping missions, kind of almost with a Rainbow Six element too. But if there's one thing we know about Destiny, no matter what the environment, it's never to kind of count her out. So as she's forced to play with others, as she sees her power role kind of subverted, what are some of the themes in Destiny's character that you see unfolding over the 5 issues of Cartel?
I think that for the first book, she was always apart from everybody. Even if she's a crowd of people, even if she's with people that she's grown up with, she's always separate from them. But there was a support system there for her. Like if you're going to wage war, then you need good sergeants, you need good captains, you need good field soldiers, you need a good team. And as always, when you're trying to continue your story about a character, you want to put that character in the worst possible place you can and then have her fight her way out. And for her, it's what is it like to be totally alone? What is it like to not have a support system you can trust, to not have people you can rely on, to not have familiar ground? What is it like for her to, as we'll get to further into Cartel, to be on her own in hostile territory across a border where she's not speaking the native language, where everybody is out to kill her, and she stands out. Like back your lead into a corner and then see what she does is pretty good writing advice.
It's also a question of what drives her. The first series was very much a young woman on a mission, a very clear passion that she had for her community, her people, and she had a particular end goal. And I think in this arc, she finds herself in a bit of a chicken or egg scenario. It's, is she an amazing quarterback that would do well on any team? Is she the point guard that can play for anyone and elevate anyone? Or is she someone that needs very specific circumstances and a very specific emotional connection to the cause to work her magic? And I think where this book finds her in the beginning is, it's a cliche, is a rebel without a cause. She has this drive, this anger, but with her first task kind of completed, she has no place to direct it.
Now, both of you guys have had, you've worked on TV. Mark, you do Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith. What is it about comic books, storytelling within the medium of comic books that appeals to you guys as storytellers, as writers? And, what were some of your origins in the medium, both as fans and as writers?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a writer, as a creator, the line between you and the audience is shortest and most direct with comic books, I think. You can write a book. If all the machinery is operating according to plan, you can write a book 1 month, have it drawn the next month, and then have it on stands the following month. There's 3 months to deliver mass medium to an audience. And that kind of direct connection is incredibly unique, especially with printed material, especially with publishing. And there's something really nice about that. There's something really nice about being able to speak to the masses without any interference in any real way, especially with a creator-owned book like Genius. Like there's a publisher, there's kind of an editor who makes sure we're on time, but nobody's policing the content. Nobody is, we are dotting our own I's and crossing our own T's. And so this is very much our story. And at this level, that's a rare thing.
It's also, it kind of scratches several itches at once. I've written things that have been directed by other people, and I've directed things written by other people. Directed things written by other people, and it's been, with comics, you're writing, you're storyboarding, you're art directing, you're kind of doing, along with the artist, you're doing everything at the same time. And when you're done, you're done. It's like you have this complete package. You can hold it, you can flip through it. Every panel, every frame. You help decide what the dialogue was, what the angle of the quote camera was. I find it just really rewarding because it just touches on so many creative aspects. And Mark and I have so many aspirations, probably too many aspirations, that in this business that we get to really satisfy a bunch of them in the comic medium.
Real quick, Mark, just changing gears for a second. I think, talking about creating and entertainment and whatnot, we kind of have to thank you, because one of the things about this show is, way back when, it's been 3 years now we've been doing the show about? About 3 years.
Yeah, they're about, yeah.
Yeah, and, we've kind of changed the show up, and something that's really inspired us and helped us a lot is the Fat Man on Batman show. And I've really liked the way that, once you kind of came along, you really helped kind of turn that show into this big kind of comic, news podcast, which is something that we've kind of...
Yeah, we never originally started out to be a
comic. We didn't start that way either.
Yeah, it's like, do you want Joe Kelly to come on? Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's been really cool, and it's helped us out, I think, kind of just like a blueprint for us to kind of follow in your guys' trails. I mean, because I remember the first time hearing you was back when it was the Batman commentaries. And Batman 89 is a movie that we have referenced, or at least I have referenced probably in every single episode somehow, somewhere. And hearing your guys, for me, that's an invincible movie. I know it's got problems, but the nostalgia is a hell of a drug. And that movie is nostalgia for me, to the nth degree. But was really glad to see when Kevin kind of picked you up and you guys kind of, do your thing. Every week, every month. What has that been like for you? Because I know, listening to the episodes, you've kind of, become, a lot of doors have opened up because of it. You had that great story you were saying in one of the recent episodes about, you and Sallah at one of the, Sallah himself from Indiana Jones at one of the events.
Did he bring 5 camels?
Yeah. But what has that just been like for you in general? Because, like I said, it's something that's really kind of helped us inform our show as well.
Adam and I have been, friends since we were 11 years old. We've always wanted to do comics. We've always wanted to do television. But there was never a desire, at least on my part, to be in front of the camera in any way. I want to be a writer. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to be a guy who told stories starring other people that other people would get to see. And so it's super weird to be, creating content in which it's me and another dude, and we're just talking. We're talking about the stuff we love, and then going to conventions and signing autographs is the most bizarre thing in the world because I'm just a nerd. Like, I'm a nerd who managed to make good in some fashion or another, and it's because I love this stuff, you know? Like, that's, at the end of the day, the only reason that the Fat Man on Batman podcast works, when it works, is because it's two guys who love this stuff to death and would talk about it even if there weren't mics there. And I think that, you know, he comes it from a place of unvarnished positivity.
Yeah.
You know, which is amazing. Like, given the nerd landscape, given the nerd media landscape, given the internet landscape, that kind of just awash and adoration is rare. You know, the internet is not really built to support things. It's built to destroy them.
Yeah.
So, you know, for him to just be like, hey, man, I take all my money.
Yeah.
Like, I never could have imagined a world in which we would have more than one superhero movie at a time to choose from, let alone having to worry about a bubble bursting or overwhelming overloads. And it's just like, you know, Kevin will say, like, if you find a way to do a thing that you love and you manage to get paid for it, then you've won. And the fact that, yeah, I mean, Adam and I used to go see movies. Adam and I saw Batman together in 1989 when I skipped my senior prom and went to a midnight show and then spent like 4 hours in a parking lot just talking about it because we're nerds and that's what nerds do. Kevin just decided to put up some cameras and then go on the road. Basically, it's him saying, hey, do you want to do this? And me saying yes. Hey, do you want to be the co-host? Sure, man. Hey, you mind if I set up some cameras? Yeah, why not? Hey, do you want to do some live shows? Okay. Hey, can we make a YouTube channel if you want? But I mean, it's been really rewarding, but also like there's a weird parallax to it all that just doesn't make any sense in my own brain. But if I look too close at it for too long, I'll just blind myself anyway.
So you guys had mentioned that you've been friends since 11. You grew up reading comics. What kind of comics were you into, and you know, how does that inform your storytelling at all?
My first comic that I can remember was The Savage Sword of Conan, which my dad bought for me ill-advisedly, I'm sure, for a 10-year-old kid to buy a book filled with like nudity and beheadings and violence and rape and stabbings. But then I segued really quickly to Secret Wars. That was the first book that I remember collecting and devouring. And it was, as intended by Jim Shooter, the perfect entry vehicle for new readers because every character is in it. And everybody's doing the thing that they do for like 4 panels. But if you do it right, that's enough. And it was enough for me. And I turned into a Marvel kid really early on and didn't pick up a DC comic until Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, which were the same year. And that was my entree into the DC universe. But my comics background has more often than not been superhero. Like Conan being the kind of perfect example. Like I didn't come to it per se for heroes. Like I came to it for the stories that I wasn't getting anywhere else.
For me, it started around 4 or 5 years old. The first thing I ever read on my own, I remember without an adult helping me, was one of the Spidey easy-to-read comics with Morgan Freeman's Easy Reader little icon on the front. And then, so I was always into comics. I would go visit my grandparents in Brooklyn, and they would send me to the bodega on the corner with $5 to just spin the rack and pick out what I wanted. But the first comic, the first story that really made me realize, wow, this art form is bigger and can do more than just, you know, superheroes flying around, was X-Men God Loves, Man Kills. Oh, wow. When I finished reading that, I felt like I had been taken somewhere. I felt like, wow, I just read a movie. And that really opened my eyes a lot. And then to echo what Mark said, it was a lot of non-superhero stuff. It was Savage Sword of Conan, definitely. It was Lone Wolf and Cub. It was the stories are what led me. If they happen to be wearing tights, that's cool. But it was just anything I can get my hands on after that.
Was the Easy Reader with Morgan Freeman, was that a tie-in to the Electric Company with Spider-Man?
Yes, it was. It was. That's why it was called Spidey. It wasn't officially Spider-Man, but it was Spidey. It was Morgan Freeman. One of his first gigs was was this bucket cap wearing 70s laid back, cool bell bottom wearing dude named Easy Reader, which I can never understand. They called him Easy Reader and they spelled it Easy Reader. So the first thing you're teaching kids is how to misspell the word easy. But he was the Easy Reader, and then they had these Spidey comics, and it had his little stamp of approval, and it would say right on the cover, Easy Reader says this comic is easy to read. And it was the perfect entry point. It was, now I have kids, Mark has kids, I don't know if you guys have kids, but you go to Barnes & Noble and you buy, children's books, and it's C-Spot this. This was a little more advanced than that, but it was with Spider-Man. The first one I ever read, it was Spider-Man versus the Owl, and somehow Storm was in it. I still remember the cover. I still have it somewhere. And it was a great not only entry point to reading, but it was a great kind of initiation draft tool to bring young readers into comics, because after that was just what I wanted to read.
So with Destiny, what kind of story are you? This is kind of broad and very macro and abstract, but what kind of story are you trying to tell across both, Genius Siege and Genius Cartel?
I think it's a story, to put it incredibly patly and possibly inanely. It's about destiny. It's about who you are meant to be and what it will cost you to be that person. Destiny was raised in a place that did not know what to do with her. She's now in a school that does not know what to do with her. The next chapter will find her, in the middle of a war that does not know what to do with her, in a country that doesn't know what to do with her. In the micro, it's about that character and that person. In the macro, it's about what it's like when your country doesn't know what to do with you, what it's like when your people don't know what to do with you, what it's like to be a part. The hero is never a member of its tribe. And I think that's, for me, going into it, it's finding ways to set her apart and to never actually let her be safe and sound, because safe and sound is, awesome when you're a dad, not so awesome when you're, the heroine of a comic book.
And safe and sound doesn't speak to her gift. The whole concept of genius was kind of born out of some history documentaries that Mark watching and some books on prodigies that I was reading. Now, when you talk about child prodigies, it usually applies to math or to music. It's something that really contributes to society or people love to experience. Destiny's gift is waging war. So what do you do when what you are best at, what you are kind of designed to do is violence? So that's going to follow her everywhere she goes. And I think one of the things that she's kind of questioning in this school setting is, am I constantly thrown into violence, or am I creating the violence that I get thrown into?
And there is this sense early in the series that she craves it. I think it's the first episode of the BBC Sherlock where, what's his name, Martin Freeman has psychosomatic stress, not because he's afraid of the war, but because he misses it. And I kind of see that with Destiny's character.
Well, there are personality types. I'm much to my parents' chagrin, I'm not a doctor, but there are personality types that thrive in chaos. They may consciously say they hate chaos. I'm sure we all have these people in our lives. They're like, oh, every time we talk to them, it's so busy and work is so crazy, or my relationship, my boyfriend and girlfriend are this, or blah, blah. But yet they're always in those situations, because whether they realize it or not, they thrive in that chaos because there's a problem that they can solve, and then they've done something. And I think on a much grander scale, that's Destiny. She thrives in chaos. She thrives on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was talking to somebody the other day about drawing the parallels between Destiny and John Rambo, and the idea that both of those characters are people who were just built to go to war and right. cannot fit into regular society. And Rambo, especially in First Blood, just in the first 10 minutes starts killing cops, and yet he's absolutely the hero of that story. He's absolutely the hero of that trilogy. And sorry, quadrilogy if you want to count John Rambo. But Destiny is kind of the same way. Like, this is what she's built to do. And what happens when you don't get to do what you're built to do?
I feel like that's Troutman's speech at the beginning of Rambo 3, where he's like, I'm the sculptor, John.
Yeah. Did we get the win this time?
This time, it's up to you.
Yeah. No, I like to, the past, really throughout the entire time we've been doing interviews with creators, someone who's always come up is Conan the Barbarian. And it's fun. It's fun because sometimes we invoke Conan the Barbarian, and other times it just is something that people
worked on before.
Yeah.
Brian Wood, Jim Zub, yeah.
Yeah, what is it that, because again, he's had something to do with your guys' kind of inspiration, starting with your careers and imaginations and comics and whatnot. What do you think it is about Conan the Barbarian? Because he's one of those guys, and we've said it a million times on the show before. You could walk up to somebody and they have never read a Robert E. Howard book, they've never even seen the Schwarzenegger movie, but everybody knows Conan the Barbarian. He's just this larger than life iconic character. What is it that you think is so kind of iconic about the character of Conan the Barbarian for all these years? I mean, 80 some years at this point?
I mean, there is just something primal about that character. It's funny. Like, it's a character who is from a dead race, basically. There are no more Cimmerians, as far as we know, in that book. So he looks different. He's bigger than everybody else. He's the outcast who also happens to be the hero. He speaks with a funny accent. He's got darker skin than everybody else does. He's, a bull in a china shop everywhere he goes. He lives by a code of honor that he's unwilling to bend on. Mm-hmm. It is very much the person that every 14-year-old boy wants to be. So yeah. It's kind of across racial boundaries because, again, his skin is presented as darker than everybody else's is. Mm-hmm. And this, despite the fact that Robert E. Howard was a virulent racist, he actually did create something that speaks to more people than I think he ever thought would have. And it is totally, kind of wish fulfillment. It's trying to present yourself in a way to the world that you don't think you were able to at the time you first read it. Nobody comes to Conan at 40. They come to Conan at 13 and 14. And there's a reason why it just sticks around. There's a reason why it digs its claws into you that way. And it's I'm not going to say it's hard to revisit, but there is something childhood pulp about it that sort of it bursts through the kind of temporal locks that you usually place on that stuff you read as a kid. I don't know. I think it's he is one of the 10 best fictional characters of all time.
And sometimes there's boobies.
Sometimes there's.
That's right.
Yes, I love Mark going on this very impassioned dissertation about race and anti-heroes, but in the end, it's boobies.
Yeah. I mean, come on, it's Sandal Bergman. I know.
Oh yeah, God, that was I'm dating myself. That was my parents' first date.
Conan the Barbarian.
Aww. Yeah, so if I ever met Schwarzenegger, I'd be like, thanks to you, I exist, and he would think I'm another illegitimate child. Something we ask everything to kind of take us out, guys, that comes on the show. What are you guys currently geeking out over?
What am I geeking out over?
Not the Inhumans.
No, it's not the Inhumans. I am geeking out, oddly enough, on Lost. I decided to go back and from the beginning rewatch Lost, because I was talking to somebody else who was in the Castle Rock writers' room about the incredible feat that the Lost pilot was. That they had 12 weeks to write, cast, shoot, and post a 2-hour movie for television, and for that 2-hour pilot of Lost to be as good as it was is remarkable. And for that first season to be as good as it was, given that nobody had ever done anything on that level before, is remarkable. And so I kind of been going back and kind of watching it and trying to take it apart and see why it works as well as it does, why it still actually holds up as well as it does. It's been fun. It's been really fun. I would highly recommend it.
Mine, I think, has been less fun. Mark and I were texting about this earlier. I've been kind of obsessed with Ozark, and I don't know why. And I've really been looking at it from a writer's point of view and trying to analyze what it is about it. As a writer, as an exercise in writing, from the first moment of the show, like almost every character is just reprehensible. But yet I keep watching the next episode and keep watching the next episode. So just from the writing standpoint, I'm trying to figure out like what is in that secret sauce that makes me coming back for more, because it's depressing, it's dark, and the characters aren't redeeming in any way, and I keep watching.
Yeah, everyone I know seems to really be into that show. I have not given that a shot yet. Do you guys watch Narcos?
I watched the first season and loved it, but then forgot how to read. So found myself at an impasse, given that show is like 80% reading subtitles.
Yeah, it's a slow watch sometimes because you got to really focus.
Yeah, they don't do it like Clear and Present Danger where they change languages mid baseball swing.
Yeah. Or Hunt for Red October where they just zoom in.
Hunt for Red October. That's the best use of establishing a foreign language that I've ever seen in a film.
Absolutely.
Just dissolve to English. We all get it.
Sean Connery still has the accent.
We all know Russian now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there was also that Antonio Banderas Beowulf movie. You guys remember that? I can't remember the name of it. When it was 13 Warriors, the 13th Warrior, that's what it was. Where over the course of a fireside chat, Antonio Banderas, playing an Arab, learns English. It's not even that the movie is just going to switch to English. No, the character learns English over a fire.
Yeah.
And speaks it better than he does in real life.
Yeah. I actually dig that movie. That's one of my.
I don't know if I've seen that movie.
It's and it's a Crichton adaptation too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of Eaters of the Dead.
And it's John McTiernan who did Hunt for Red October.
Oh shit! Well, there you go.
It all comes around.
Yeah,
it all comes.
I also have to thank you, Mark, for introducing me to Camelot 3000, which is like I haven't finished it yet because I'm a slow reader, but it is like some of the most fun King Arthur shit I've ever read.
It's just big and daffy and stupid, and I love it to death.
I can't remember all their names, but when the little kid comes across King Arthur as the aliens are coming, which is an actual thing that happens in the book, and he pops out and he's like, "I'm back!" It's just like the best. And then, Brian Boland art always.
Did you watch the?
I had not seen the
Charlie Hunnam,
the new King Arthur King Arthur yet.
It is not the worst movie I've seen this year. I will say that.
Well, that's good to hear.
It has no reason to exist beyond Guy Ritchie just wanted to I want to do a punk rock King Arthur. Great. Should there be a punk rock King Arthur? No, but I want to make one. Oh, all right, sure.
How did they explain King Arthur being like 50 years old?
Oh, he never gets to be 50.
I couldn't get over. I haven't watched it because the conceit. I couldn't buy in.
Well, my thing was when Entertainment Weekly, I think they had a photo of him, and it was like that model photo where you have like your hand on your neck kind of thing.
Oh, and he's wearing a Henley
and
for some reason?
he's got like Excalibur, and I was like, what is this? I was like, I'm going to wait to rent that on Vudu.
Yeah. No, it's worth watching just because Jude Law is basically playing like Robert Smith meets David Bowie as depressed, vain King of England. And that is pretty great. Like, just withering rock star as king is super fun.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that was one I was like, I don't know if I'll see in theaters, but I'm a sucker for like King Arthur stuff, even though most of it lately has just been crappy. But Camelot 3000, folks, if you haven't read it, it's on Comixology. I think it's only 12 issues, but it's a fun ride.
Real quick, just to close this out, that does beg the question: what is the worst movie you guys have seen in theaters?
Like ever?
I was going to say this year, but
year.
ever, sure.
I'd say it's a toss-up for me. One was there was an old Lou Ferrigno movie where he played Hercules.
Ooh.
That I remember as 10 or 11 or 12 years old, when you really don't walk away from anything. I got up and walked out of. And then the other one for me was, I remember when Mark and I and a bunch of friends went to see Wing Commander just because there was a Star Wars trailer at the head of it.
Oh.
I've done that
And
for just the trailer.
We got I think we sat through all of Wing Commander. I slept, though.
No, we stayed.
We stayed. I fell asleep, but I just remember we went just for the trailer, for like the special edition trailer. I don't even think it was like a Phantom Menace trailer. I can't remember.
No, I think it was Phantom Menace. I think that's the only reason we convinced ourselves to do that. We went to like a Times Square theater too.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was horrendous.
I did the same thing with Dreamcatcher and that Matrix animated short that was in front of it.
Animatrix,
Yeah.
the last flight of the Osiris.
Yeah, and same outcome. Dreamcatcher was terrible.
Oh, I did it where this is like, I went to go with Sam to go see The Hobbit at midnight, and all respect to all the Hobbit, Lord of the Rings fans, I was not interested in that, but they were going to show the Man of Steel trailer, and they didn't show the Man of Steel trailer. And so then I turned to Sam and I went, "Oh great, now I got to watch this shit for the
like
next 2.5
3 hours."
Yeah, that's rough.
And it turned out to be like the worst like Middle Earth thing ever, right? Because like Unexpected Journey is the Phantom Menace of Middle Earth. Like they even it's just fucking terrible.
Listen, you guys, you just don't respect the love of a good dishwashing scene. That's your problem.
That dishwashing scene is the Duel of Fates of.
Yeah.
But let's not also sugarcoat stuff. When you have an entire movie of two characters and a tree walking, it's however faithful it is, it's not the most exciting thing to watch.
Even if said tree is voiced by Sala.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet salt.
That's how we go all around.
That's right.
Well, again, not first, because the first issue is already in comic book stores and Comixology, silly Sam. The second issue of Genius Cartel is out in comic book stores and on Comixology everywhere on Wednesday, September 13th. Adam, Mark, thanks again for coming on the show.
Oh, no.
Thank you for having us.
It was fun.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.